Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Africa, you know we love the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful August 15th, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, just a wonderful day, getting ready tomorrow night for another start of preseason football for the week, Charlton. So, everything is moving along fairly well at a pretty quick pace. Since the rules have changed last year where they would cut players after each preseason game, It's been a little odd because training camps are staying loaded with players, giving players a little longer look this time around, Charlton, for the second year running.
Yes.
But it's going to be quite interesting. Our team's going to break out, start playing the veterans a little more this week. Are we going to see a little longer look at some of the first and second year players, though?
Yeah, we're definitely going to learn more about that. Also, concussions back in the news up in northern Canada. Looks like our friend having a little bit of issues with concussions, and Johnny Manziel. Also, baseball. Talk about concussions. I went to a Dodgers game. I thought it was a Dodgers game, but it was boxing. I said, hold on. I thought it was Chavez Ravine. It was the Giants and Dodgers throwing fisticuffs again last night, Big C. And, something that happens in baseball, kind of like hockey. I thought, for the most part, people expect to go to a hockey game and see a fist fight. But you have Yasiel Puig, since he's let his hair grow out, he's become a little bit more feisty, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he and the catcher got into a little spat last night, Charlton. Next thing you know, punches being thrown.
Yeah.
The thing that I look at, Charlton, with athletes that don't wear gear, basketball players, baseball players, is that they're inaccurate with their punches.
Yep.
It's like, you can't fight somebody with your eyes closed.
No, you can't.
And they seem to have the preponderance to do that.
Yep.
As a catcher and a guy at bat, you're right there in a close proximity to each other.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, within arm's reach. And yet your arms can't reach when you act like you want to fight.
Yep.
I mean, it's almost like a girl pillow fight going on at times, Charlton.
Yeah.
You're looking at this. I understand you don't want to hurt the tools that you earn your living with, your hands.
Yeah.
But you're going to get suspended anyway.
Yeah.
And so, the thing about fighting in professional sports is that all the commissioners really have to take a sterner look at that. Now, I'm not talking about the sternness of former NBA commissioner.
Yeah.
When we look at hockey players, and I know for years, grimmishness has been part of the sports where, fights break out and you let the guys punch themselves out. But you have to have severe penalties, not 2 minutes in the penalty box, Charlton. I'm talking about 2 games off the ice.
Yeah.
You have that in hockey. Let's get 2 games off the ice, and let's shut down on the fighting. Basketball?
Yep.
Let's do 2 or 3 games also. And football, let's hit a game.
Yeah.
We're going to eliminate a lot of the fighting. Baseball, it's the same way. 2 or 3 game suspension. Players will think 2 or 3 times and not have it appealable, Charlton, because once the punch is thrown, just like in the NBA, when you leave the bench, except the Cavaliers last year in the finals, you get suspended.
Yep. It makes a lot of sense to do that.
Half of that bench left the court. When a fight broke out, Charlton, and none of those players got suspended because the NBA wanted them to stay intact.
Yep, that's very true, Big C. I do want to say today's segment sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Another thing that we got to look at, too, when it comes to fighting, I know people say, it's tradition for hockey or for baseball, but there was a time when a baseball player was making less than $100,000 a year. So if someone got hurt, they really didn't lose that much money. But now as an owner, you have guys making $20 million a year in baseball, and they may go out and break a finger or break a hand and can't play. Now they've cost their organization money. They've cost their team a chance to maybe even make the playoffs. The Dodgers are not a shoe into the playoffs. And so for Yasiel Puig, he could have walked away. I know everybody can blame whoever they want to blame. We don't know what was said. But when you had a guy making nearly $100 million, you can't have him go out there and risking his product. The product is your hand. It's a commodity. I don't think that's acceptable. Plus, it's just a bad look. I know people say it's macho, but I think it's a bad look for the fans. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, the number one thing you're making a bad look with is the young players. When you're teaching young players, little leaguers, Babe Ruth players, Charleston, how to play the game with integrity. And when you look at the stands at most major league and professional sporting events, there's a lot of youth in the stadiums, Charleston.
Yeah.
They're walking around with their gloves, hoping to be able to shag a fly ball, or just a player would toss a courtesy ball up in the stands.
Yeah.
But you're trying to set an example how the game should be played, how you should respect your opponent,
Yep.
how you should go out and play hard, but not push the envelope, Charlton,
Yeah.
into violence. And it's getting so much now, and I think that the excessive amount of violence that we have now is that people know it's going to make the highlight show.
Yeah.
And they're going to be revered for a couple days. You know, the game ended a day ago,
Yeah.
but you'll have the highlights still playing the next day.
Yep.
And you'll have these sports commentators talking about it. Yet, just as you said, you don't know what was said to initiate the fight,
Yeah.
but the fight went off.
Yeah.
And the continuum of showing violence, it's like years ago during games, Charlton, when we had these people called streakers
Yeah.
that would run out of the stands and run across the field. And, you know, when it first started, the camera guys and the producers would focus on them and show them
Yep.
until they were, you know, tackled by security. The past couple of years, Charlton, they stopped showing these incidents. And the number of them has dropped dramatically.
Yeah.
Of these incidents of people running down on the field, scantily clad or no clothes at all, getting arrested, having to spend the night in jail, Charlton, for
Yeah.
trespassing, public intoxication, and whatever else they get hit with.
Yeah.
So if they stop showing the fights when they break out on these highlight shows, Chuck, I think it would reduce it, because now the player has gotten a suspension, gotten a fine, and gotten no glory out of it. He has no tape of it to show his buddies
Yeah.
while he's sitting at home for 3 days.
While he's sitting at home for 3 days. And even the contrast of everything that's going on in our society. From POTUS calling an African-American woman a dog, and some people say, well, that's just him. So when we talk about bad behavior and no one chastises you for bad behavior, or there's no punishment, imagine some kid. Remember, I told you there's a stat research that people can Google too. African-American men are 10 times more likely than Caucasian boys to be expelled from high school. And elementary school, 10-1, 10 times more likely. Now, would you believe there have been boys expelled from school for calling their teacher the B word or the dog word, which is pretty much the same thing? They've been expelled. And so when the school says, we're going to cut down on bullying, and you brought it up yesterday, and we let kids say, if you say a certain word, you're going to be expelled from school, and we may even, you know, try to chastise the parents with some type of fee or whatever it is. But at the same time, the highest office in the land, we look at what happened Dodgers Giants yesterday. But isn't what POTUS said about an African-American woman who worked for him just as egregious, because it came from the highest office in the land? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, is beyond egregious. You know, regardless of whether, you know, she was at the highest office of the land, he hired her. At one time, he felt that she was competent enough and had enough integrity to work for him, that she was as qualified as everyone there at the White House that he had hired.
Yeah.
But, you know, when people don't always pat him on the back, and one of the main things he said, the reason why he hired her, because she always spoke highly of him.
Yeah.
So if you spoke highly of him, you could get a job.
Yeah.
And, you know, for $180,000, I mean, that's a little more than what he was paying the porn stars and the Playboy bunnies.
Yep. Yep.
You know, on the taxpayer's dollar to do nothing. She really had no official title.
No.
She just was to say that she liked him and he was a good guy.
So let me
So
ask.
that was worth $180,000 a year.
180,000. So when we look at the thing that happened in baseball, and I think baseball, I played baseball when I was a young boy, never at the professional level, but fights were they're pretty much standard. I think they fight in baseball more than in football. But when we say we got to crack down on it, and I know a lot of people are being tough on Yasiel Puig because he did what POTUS did. He threw the first punch, and it was a painful punch. The thing with Yasiel Puig, he stood face-to-face with the person he punched, the catcher for the Giants. But what POTUS did, you can't fight back. because he did it in silence. Now, I ask any person, especially Gloria Allred, who's very pro Me Too movement if you have the right skin complexion, has she come out and made any statements? And for any girl that has, when school starts this week and next week for most everyone in the country, when they get what's called cyberbullying, you know, some women have taken their own lives because they couldn't deal with the pressure of being cyberbullied. And now we have POTUS in the White House, and no one's told them to get their blank out of the country, like he said, for the African Americans standing up against that garbage. I just want to know, where do we go to get our message that it's not tolerated to bully people or to walk up and punch somebody in the face? Bixie, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't think that you go to the First Lady with her program Be Best and anti-bullying, because we don't hear a thing from her.
No.
That's what's amazing about a First Lady of the United States, the President's wife, who set up a program, Be Best, anti-bullying campaign.
Yeah.
She set it up 100 days ago today, Charlton. And we have not heard anything in that 100 days from her about this anti-bullying, Charlton.
Yeah.
We've seen children ripped from their families at their borders, taken across country, locked up in pens like little animals, Charlton, put in places they know nothing about with people they know nothing about. We don't know what the welfare of these children, whether they're being abused, whether they're taken care of properly, because the media can't find out. You've been trying to deport them under the cloak of darkness.
Yeah.
But we haven't heard anything from the First Lady. So, and I think that until a woman of substance and power speaks out for the rest of the women of America, Charlton, this is the kind of atmosphere that we will operate under. So you can't set up a program, Charlton, to say Be Best, anti-bullying, and you live with a guy who does it every day with gusto, and you stay silent.
Yeah.
So you're just as culpable as he is, Charlton.
Yeah.
And set up a fraudulent campaign.
Well, I got to bring up a thought, because I am African American, and my mother raised me during Jim Crow, and she's dealt with the same kind of garbage that came from mainstream against African American women. And I know there's some black men that won't say anything because they have no spine. But for the next woman, like Kellyanne Conway missed I thought a seminal moment in our society. And I know that she's gonna say anything that her boss tells her. But they're saying, well, if anyone used the N-word, I couldn't work for somebody like that. Yeah, right. Because if the N-word is offensive to people of color, how about if we call all women dogs? So now the next girl in high school or college that has these fraternity guys are just some bully calling women what they call a female dog. I mean, people can Google what that is. So instead of saying if someone used the N-word, I couldn't work for them, so you're saying if they call women dogs, that's okay? So these women, these young girls that are going around the country and they're seeking some type of help because they're damaged emotionally when they're called such horrible names that make them seek counseling. So what does a counselor say when we just don't even condemn what POTUS said? And you condemn it not by saying don't say it. You condemn it by disassociating yourself with that person. Jeff Sessions hasn't done it, but these are the same people that tell athletes, and I want mainstream to listen, they tell athletes that you're anti-American for standing up against sexual assault and racism and discrimination. But athletes also stand up against calling women the dog word or the B word. But there's no pushback from their own person. And I want to get your thoughts on why she's so silent, Kellyanne Conway, Bixie, and Gloria Allred.
Well, Charlton, what amazes me is when you say Gloria Allred. He is a person who's always there in the middle of women's issues, Charlton. Let me take a step back. Gloria Allred is always there when there's a chance to make money. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what she's there for. When she feels that she can sue somebody. I remember in the Cosby case, she said, well, let him put aside $100 million.
Yeah.
There was a dollar sign.
Yep.
Gloria Allred came out initially when the first couple of women accused Trump. She went away after that. And she's already indicated that she would do whatever she has to do for money.
Yeah.
So we've known that he has a history of paying off women. So how much did she accept to go away and not come back and represent any women in any accusations against this administration or the president?
Yeah.
And so this is the reason why we don't see Gloria Allred. And for Kellyanne Conway to sit there and say that she could not work for anybody that has used the N-word, Charlton,
Yeah.
she's never had a job then, if that's the case.
Yeah.
It's been unemployed her entire adult life.
Yeah.
And let's just be realistic about that. We're in America.
Yeah.
That's a word that's used too often and too common. And the way that word is used in mainstream society, Charlton, is that you put your head on the swivel.
Yep.
You look to your left, you look to your right
Yeah.
to see who's in the room.
Yeah.
And if no one's in of color, then you use that word. So anybody in corporate America, Charlton, and especially in this administration, that says that they could not work for somebody who has used that word, I mean, from the White House chief of staff to the vice president, the president, all these people, Charlton, have used it. His administration, his upper administration, his cabinet appointees, Charlton,
Yeah.
they have used those words.
Yeah.
I don't have to be there to say that, and I'm not alleging that they have. I would go out on 3 limbs and say that they've said it.
Well, you know, I remember when I was a young boy, I got called the N-word by my teacher. I think I was in the 1st grade. Of all the things I remember her calling me a little N. She's a Caucasian lady. And as a 1st grader, I think I was about 5 or 6 years old, you know, it's kind of shocking because I was the only black kid in that class. There's about 30 kids. I was the only African American. The rest were all Caucasian. And when she used the word, I'm going way back in the days, you know, back in when I was a 6-year-old boy. But no one said anything other than, ooh, you can't say that. If you were to hear something that's offensive, most people would say, oh, you can't say that. But she said it with such easiness. And she's a school teacher. That means she had a teaching credential. And maybe they say times have changed. But to call that to your own student, no, it didn't break me because I had good parenting. But when I think about it, it still happens to this day. And I know so many people have jumped on Yasiel Puig, who's a person of color, for throwing the first punch. Well, for people of color that say, what is all this? Why are people taking a knee? Why can't they just shut up and play? Can't they just play football and basketball and baseball and entertain us? And when I heard you told me this, I hadn't known that until you told me what happened yesterday, so I Googled it. But it brought back something that happened to me when I was a 6-year-old boy. And that teacher was never admonished. All I did was tell my mother, and of course she came to the school. That teacher was still there the next day. But still, there have always been people that would say, well, I would never work around that. I challenge every person, be honest with yourself in the next 10 seconds. Have you ever heard anyone that you know of, not even if it's you, but that you know of that did that and you disassociated yourself with that person? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we'd have a lot of people walk around lonely in America if that was the case. I had an incident late in my career in a game where I made a hit on the sideline. And I had a defensive coordinator jump up and say I was just a ghetto N-word.
Yeah.
In front of multiple black athletes standing there on his sideline, Charlton.
Yeah.
They started laughing. And I looked at them all, stood right there. And I said, if you MFs think, if he says that about me, what does he think about you?
Yeah.
And I dropped the F-bomb on them, Charlton.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if he says that about me, what does he think about you? And he's looking at you every day.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
And he said it at me because I'm punishing you guys.
Yeah.
He says this about you with gusto. And they all got silent.
Yeah.
Because they had bought into this, Charlton, that it was acceptable that he blast me with the N-word. But when I explained to them that this is what he thought about them every day, and he worked with them every day. He only saw me once or twice a year.
Yeah.
He saw them every day. And at that point, it resonated with him that maybe he's right, you know, that we are that.
Wow.
And he's doing it because he's mad at him. But I stand there in his face. I said, I'm here now.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Yep.
And he backed up at that point.
But you know, what's interesting is we talk about so much about social justice and equality. You know what I haven't heard today? And granted, I've been in a lot of meetings throughout the day, but I haven't heard any of our mainstream brethren even we talk about how race mixes with politics and religion, etc. And people have this thought about POTUS and saying fire the SOBs, which is fire black men. And I haven't heard mainstream media even push back and defend this African-American woman. They all want to say, well, she's not credible. Why is she not credible? You saw it on your own, with your own two eyes. Now, well, he's done it to other people. why does that make her less credible to say what he said to her? We all saw it. And if the mainstream brethren, black or white, that run sports programming, and we talk about anti-sexual, what they call the sex abuse now with Ohio State, Michigan State, these are seminal moments to say, wait a minute, this is how it starts. People tacitly consent to it. They turn a blind eye. Have you heard any mainstream network giving even 5 minutes to this? Because as sure as Omarosa had to face it, there are going to be some sorority women who are facing the same thing, and everyone is going to say, well, it's not a bad thing, as women are seeking help because they're emotionally damaged. Any mainstream media reach out and say, that's not right? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, they're all skeptical on how they're going to react to a situation. It's no different than the sports stations, Charlton. As when we sit up and we watch, majority of the sports broadcasters now, Charlton, being minority, either black men or women, okay? And there's a lot of minority women, Hispanic and black, also in that mix.
Yeah.
And when you have the administration saying, fire the black guys, that's what he's saying. He's saying fire the black guys. The guys who help them earn their living.
Yeah.
Okay? He's saying they should be eliminated, that they're not Americans, that they're anti-American. And you're not sitting there bashing the players. That's what gets me, is that you're a sports broadcaster. You're on the television every night, and you're not saying what this guy is saying is wrong and detrimental and racist.
I know it.
That's what gets me. I understand the situation of Omarosa, and I'm offended by that because of black women. But also, when we have all these minority sports broadcasters, when he stands right there and say, fire the SOBs,
they say nothing.
Tell them that they're cut, all of this. And here it is, you're playing his highlight, but you're advocating for him because you're playing his highlight and you're not slamming him.
Yep.
You're not saying he's wrong, he's out of touch, he's out of character. He is being racist and biased. He's only targeting minorities. They don't say that, Charlton. They're saying, well, the president had this at his rally last night. No, he was being racist towards you also.
That's what I think
and
about.
That's the thing that gets me.
Yeah.
You're a black broadcaster. You're a female broadcaster. And all you female broadcasters, what he said about Omarosa, that she was a dog, you're categorizing that also from his mouth.
Because they say nothing.
All of you black broadcasters who says fire the SOBs, you're categorizing that from his mouth also.
Yeah, and so I say because I was talking to a woman who really educated me about how many women are cyberbullied. Teenage girls Omarosa, she's a grown woman. She can defend herself. She has some money, and maybe the justice system will be on her side. But there are a lot of girls who don't have that kind of support when men are bullying them.
You got to think, Charlton. The justice system, how can it be on our side when they can select the judges that they want?
Very good point.
They can get pro-administration judge to oversee this arbitration that they're seeking. Let's go back to the presidential campaign.
Yeah.
And there was a Fox News reporter at the time who is now with NBC, Megyn Kelly.
Yeah. Who
had made a comment to him during a debate. And he made a slanderous, negative, derogatory remark to her on national television. And he got no reprimand from anybody, not even from the networks, Charlton, not even from anybody in in his campaign.
Yeah.
So that she sat there and looked like she was bleeding from body parts and in anguish in dealing with him.
I remember that.
How disparaging is that? Here's a woman trying to do her job as a professional. She wasn't being biased. She was just doing her job as a professional. And so she was white. So if there was no drawback against him doing this against a white reporter, how does a black woman stand a chance in America?
That's a very good point, and that's why I brought up earlier, and people can Google this too. I mean, it goes way back to the Kerner Commission, but there's some studies that are new that in schools starting up all over the country. That's why it's so important to have this conversation today, because black boys are 10 times more likely to be expelled or suspended from school for saying the same thing that POTUS just said. Google it. So when people say, well, they're aberrant, or maybe it's their culture, or, we can't trust them, or you got to follow them through a department store. I remember just talking to, I had an experience that I've known a long time. I met this Caucasian man, nice gentleman. We were talking about cars. Well, he's in a biracial relationship. His wife is African American. His son looks like he's black. He doesn't look white at all. But his father's white. And for this white male who's about 60 years old to tell me, when I asked him how does he deal with race in this society, and he said, you know what, until he got married to an African-American woman, he really didn't understand racism. But whenever he's out shopping in department stores with his son gets followed where he doesn't get followed. Young black kid, good student, happened to play pro basketball, but his son gets followed around by security and undercover security. And I understand, I think most African Americans can understand that. And so that goes back to that 10 times more likely to be expelled from school. But when we don't call the mainstream out for that. So I just want people to be aware of that, because without Big C Sports talking about it, you won't hear about it on the Mothership. You won't hear about it on any of those networks other than maybe 30 seconds. And Big C, I'm like the fact that we advocate for people, black and white, and I always want to make sure that we have a platform of that. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, people are just wanting to be people and wanting to be treated equal in American society. And when we have so many disparaging remarks and we don't have people in the broadcast industry come to their defense, because you have the last word every day in media, whether it's sports media, whether it's broadcast media. You have the last word every day, whether you're fighting for little girls, little boys, young men, Charlton.
Yeah.
You can. But when you're sitting there and saying, well, I don't want to rock the boat, I just want to keep my job, then you become an advocate of what that negativity is.
Yeah.
Because that becomes your thought when you say, I don't want to rock the boat, so I'm just going to go along with it. If you're not disagreeing with something, Charlton, then you're going along with it, whether it's passively or unpassively.
Yeah.
You're going along with it. And we hear this every day on the news, on sports broadcasts. We're just going along. We just want to give you the score, and we don't want to talk about the other incident. It's like the Yasiel Puig. Sports to a broadcaster become so boring that the fight became the highlight.
I noticed
because
that.
Think about it.
Yeah.
It was so boring that the fight was the highlight. Think about, ask all the networks together, how many times did they show Yasiel Puig's fight last night?
Yeah.
Continuously.
Yep.
All last night, Charlton, all today. It was shown. Ask them how many times did they show every hit in the game, a bat making contact with the ball.
Yep.
They didn't, Charlton.
No, they don't.
Just a few. But the fight was more interesting, something negative.
Yeah.
And that's what the fight represented, something negative. Just like our administrations represent something negative. They said, well, I don't want to talk about that. Now is not the time.
Yeah.
And I wonder in America, and I got less years to live than I do to live. Just like a lot of people that are senior citizens in America, Charlton.
Yeah.
We have less time to live than what we do live. When will be the time? When will be the time to have dialogue, open dialogue about race relations in America? Because they are deteriorating all the time.
Yeah.
And those who have not to worry about race relations don't see people that don't look like them in their neighborhoods, Charles.
Yeah.
They don't. So they say, we don't have a problem because we have neighborhood watch, we have neighborhood security. Let's keep that on the other side of town.
Yep.
Go to Chicago, to the north and south side of Chicago, Charlton, where all the professional sports teams play. Okay? Go find Soldier Field. Go find Wrigley Field. Go find, Comiskey Park.
Yeah.
Go find Bull Stadium, Charlton. Go find where the professional teams play on the north and south side of Chicago.
Yeah.
They have problems, Charlton, because those people, the only thing they have to look up to are those sporting events.
Yep.
They don't have great industry on their side of the town, Charlton, huge department shopping malls, great car dealerships. They don't have that, Charlton.
Yeah.
They don't have the marvelous supermarkets. So all they have is sports to gravitate to.
Yeah. And
those people that don't have those stadiums in their neighborhood don't worry about the things that don't happen positive in their neighborhoods, Charlton.
Yeah.
But until we recognize these people, go to any major city in America, Charlton, witness where they have these huge stadiums and arenas located at. They're not located in the neighborhoods that have $3, $4, $5 million houses, Charlton.
No.
They're located in neighborhoods that have housing projects and low-income housing. That's where they're located.
Yeah.
But they do not benefit those areas, Charlton.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing happen over in Oakland where they have a lot of used to be what's called the Eastmont Mall, right along in the Oakland, near the corridor of 880, and now that's pretty much a police station. And there's hardly any malls to walk around and take your family. And even with all the sports teams leaving, there'll be more people leaving. There used to be a lot of car dealerships that were over there too, and car manufacturing plants where they were bringing men off the ships from the bay, and then they would send them out all over the country. I think there's a lot of manufacturing that left. So we know a lot of times people don't see each other, except for the sporting environment. But I just want to say for people who think that what POTUS did to a woman, and you have women going back to high school, girls going back to high school, they're getting bullied too. And there's no pushback. And I feel for the women who are dealing with that and getting counseling for it, because they have no one that will stand up for them, and I hope they will always do that. I do want to say
isn't that the First Lady's job, Charlton? Isn't that her campaign?
Is that, and also that.
So when we say we have nobody to stand up for the young ladies of America, what is the First Lady of this country's job? When you set up an anti-bullying campaign, but yet you won't speak to support the people that are bullying, why did you even set up the campaign?
Yep, some things are just done for looks. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know a Big C sent you. So I hope that everybody can just speak up for little girls, because if anyone can be called the B word, it could be your daughter, your mother, your wife, your sister. And for too many African American women, they heard that, and they heard it with impunity. They had no one come to their defense. That's why I'm ashamed of mainstream media not doing more to say that's wrong and making that an example. I mean, Kellyanne Conway, at least, if you're going to stand up for a person who calls someone who looks just like you a B, what do you not stand up for? I do want to say also, commentators, Big C. Jalen Ramsey, we talk about being honest. What did Jack tell us? I want the truth. And he said, you can't handle the truth. The great Jack, in one of his movies, Big C. I think, I forgot the name of the movie, but I know he was talking about Tom Cruise. But Jalen Ramsey, who we know is a dominant defensive player, because of some statements he made on some quarterbacks that they're overrated, there was more pushback on him for saying the truth than POTUS calling someone a dog. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's what the amazing part is, Charlton, when he came out and spoke about several NFL quarterbacks that are overrated. Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco, the kid that Buffalo drafted, Allen, Ben Roethlisberger. And, I'll take you back to last week. There was an incident with Kelvin Benjamin and Cam Newton, two former teammates with the Carolina Panthers a few years back.
Yeah.
And Kelvin said, if he'd had a better quarterback, that he would have been a better NFL player.
Yeah.
Well, he forgot that in his rookie year, Charlton, he caught 73 passes.
Yeah.
Made the all-rookie team.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he was an all-pro as a rookie. The following year, he had a knee injury, didn't play at all.
Yep.
The Carolina Panthers went to the Super Bowl. Maybe Carolina was a better team without him being on the roster, so they traded him the following year.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that Cam Newton was able to take his team to the Super Bowl without Kelvin Benjamin being on the roster. But to slide back to where you were, the media made that, a black-on-black thing.
Yeah.
That it was just a personal rumble. They're showing them and standing up there trying to talk with each other and all of that. Jalen Ramsey came out and just said, hey, flat out, these white quarterbacks are overrated.
Yeah.
Period. Look at them. What have they done lately? They're overrated. And the kid, Josh Allen, he's out of his league being in the NFL.
Wow.
And he said, ask. Just check. Look at them statistically where they are right now. What has Flacco done in the past couple of years since the Super Bowl? Nothing. He's degressed.
Cast his check. He cast his check.
Ben Roethlisberger, since his last Super Bowl, has he been back? No. He hasn't gotten any better, Charlton. He's constantly crying, talking about retiring, his teammates, this and that. Now he's suffering with a concussion.
Yeah.
So when he called out several white quarterbacks, now all of a sudden he's being racist.
Yeah.
This is what the media is. The media wants to beat up Jalen Ramsey. Well, we had a conversation, Charlton, about Terrell Owens and every other player that's been held out of all major leagues Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Whether it's the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA. because of white broadcasters and sports writers, Charlton, that they can have an opinion. And that's generally the only opinion that matters.
Yeah.
They get no backlash on that.
No.
But Jalen Ramsey, when we talk about peers having a vote on getting players into All-Star games, getting them into Hall of Fame, Jalen Ramsey has to sit there for 60 minutes every game and watch the guy across from it.
Yeah.
He knows who is productive and who is not productive in the league. He's not being biased, Charlton. He's basing this on people that he has to play against. He didn't say anything about Tom Brady. He didn't say he was overrated.
Right.
He didn't say Aaron Rodgers was overrated, Charlton. He didn't do that. But, when he picked on certain guys who hadn't done anything lately, all of a sudden, he's being biased.
Yeah.
And he's speaking out of context. He doesn't have the right. He does not have the right, being a black football player in the NFL, to evaluate a white quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because these are the franchise guys who make the $100 million contracts that we hold on a pedestal, that every team has to have one of them to get to someplace. Jalen Ramsey spoke the truth, Charlton.
Yeah.
And for that, he's being battered by the media, saying that he shouldn't say these things against other players. You think about over the years, how many black quarterbacks have been spoken negatively about, Charlton, through the media, through these broadcast companies, that they're not intelligent, that they can't process the offenses, they can't read the defenses, they hold the balls too long. If I had $1 for every negative comment made about every black quarterback since the NFL has been around, Charlton, a lot of us would be retired in a much more comfortable position. But they forget all about that, Charlton, that they say anything negative about black quarterbacks. And that's the media.
Yeah. And Big C, there's been a lot of African-American athletes, quarterbacks that were quarterbacks in college, and they got to the pros because the MSL is about an image, and they want to have the Caucasian quarterback because they want to say this is the leader, everything runs through him. So they wanted to look like the owner, and I can understand that from a eugenic point of view, but from a competitive point of view, I don't understand it at all. And that's why there's been so much pushback going back to Dickey. I think he played for the Raiders back in the day. Al Davis gave him a chance. There've been a lot of players that were NFL caliber, but they were given the same treatment that Jackson just got. They tried to give it to Sean Watson and also Westbrook up in Wilson up in Seattle. They tried to give that to them to say, well, he really doesn't. He lacks the capacity to really think on his feet. Well, what else do you play football other than on your feet, Big C? If they're good enough to dominate in college and they're good enough to dominate in the NFL, even the great Warren Moon Hall of Famer didn't get a chance to play in the NFL. It's not because he wasn't great. It's because he didn't have the right skin complexion. So they've always gotten so much pushback that they even were exiled from the league at that position anyway. So I don't know why people don't have thicker skin the way African Americans have had it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I saw snippets of a preseason game the other night that Kansas City caught the last bit of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Where they had this young rookie quarterback in, Charlton. He was out of the University of Marshall. And one of the commentators made, well, he has that prototypical size that you're looking for.
Yeah.
He's 6'5", about 227 pounds. But he was a fourth-string quarterback, Charlton.
Yeah.
Fourth-string quarterback. But he was the same build as the kid Allen in Buffalo.
Josh Allen,
He had better college statistics than the kid Allen in Buffalo. But because of your friends Kuiper and McShay said that Allen was a surefire first-round pick and couldn't miss, he went in the first round. This kid out of Marshall goes in the sixth round.
Yeah.
Even though they look the same. But, but when the commentator said, well, he has that prototypical look that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Not that he can play. Not that he can't play. He just has a prototypical look that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's, that was a subliminal message to the listening audience and viewing audience.
Yeah.
He's that white quarterback that you're looking for, standing 6'5", 225, 230. That's what you're looking for from an organizational perspective. Not that he can play, but we will give him a chance because he looks that way. If you look at the three quarterbacks on the Buffalo Bill roster right now, Charlton, and Nathan Peterman, I think he just threw another interception again tonight.
Just now in practice.
And the game has kicked off. And I think they might return that one all the way.
He's practicing interceptions and how to cover them.
A.J. McCarron,
who
hasn't played any meaningful football since he won a national championship in Alabama. That was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You got Josh Allen, who came out of Wyoming. And I think they have a club team there or something like that he played on. He doesn't know anybody in the NFL that he played against in college.
The Wyoming Cowboys, yep.
But, these are what the Buffalo Bills organization says are the best 3 NFL quarterbacks available. Think about that. You're going to start the season with a quarterback that probably has never even won an NFL game.
Yeah.
And you're saying that this is the best that you could do. You don't have a quarterback on your roster that has won 3 NFL games. Let's be realistic. You got 3 quarterbacks, and you don't have 3 NFL wins. And you're saying that's the best you can do. That's the best that's available out there, NFL standard quarterback-wise.
Yeah.
Because they're all 6'4", 6'5", 225 pounds, and white.
Yeah. Remember back in the day, Joe Gilliam played backup for Terry Bradshaw for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was a better athlete than Terry, but even back in the day, they put Terry Bradshaw out there. Terry was a good quarterback also, but Gilliam was better as a better athlete. I think when Terry got hurt, I think it was Gilliam that came in and led him to, 11-1 at that time.
11 consecutive victories.
11 consecutive victories. Bradshaw never did that, and he still set the bench. I mean, the NFL has had that going on for a long time, but outside of Big C Sports, no one's going to talk about, and all we say is Google it. Don't even take our word for anything we say that you can Google it. No one's going to ask you to fact check them, and if I'm wrong, I'll come out and tell you I'm wrong. I get a lot of my knowledge from reading and also Google. I know, Big C, you'll come from praying in the Bible, and all that moonshine makes yourself, what's called the higher self opens up and things slow down for you. But that clairvoyance really works because there are things that you say that people, all they have to do is Google. They don't have to hear it 50 times like you do in the mothership. But I just want to bring up that point about being insensitive to the plight of some men for years, going back 50 years, when they took guys out of college that could play quarterback and said, you got to be a defensive back, you got to be a running back, you got to be a wide receiver, because we think you may lack the mental capacity, a.k.a. a guy like Tiger Woods lacks the mental capacity to golf, Big C. We've heard that for years for NFL football, NBA basketball, and even hockey and golf. All those sports, we've heard that same garbage. So we just can't knock Jalen Ramsey for saying, he's saying what he saw because he's played against those guys, Big C. I want to say there's 310 Hall of Famers that they had 2 weeks ago that are still all negative conversations around Terrell Owens. What happened to all these Hall of Famers that should be getting the attention? And there seems to be such a push. T.O. didn't call anyone a dog. He didn't call someone that they're bleeding out of their body parts. He didn't say he's going to grab some NFL player by his jock strap and get away with it. But he gets more pushback than that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when I listen to these broadcasters continuously talk negative about Terrell Owens, what they're saying is that retired players in the Hall of Fame are insignificant to them. That's what they're saying. That's what these broadcasters are actually saying. That the retired players who are in the Hall of Fame that went through the ceremony, that's insignificant. Terrell Owens is more of a highlight to them throughout his career, and even in his Hall of Fame skipping of the introduction ceremony, Charlton, than what the guys that went to the ceremony are, Charlton. Terrell Owens will only be on television and on radio when someone seeks to put him on there.
Yeah.
I don't see them interviewing anybody from this current Hall of Fame class, Charlton. I'm not seeing Ray Lewis being interviewed. I'm not seeing Brian Urlacher, Bobby Beathard, any of these guys being interviewed, Charlton.
Yeah.
But I'm constantly hearing Terrell Owens.
Yeah.
We all know how great a player he was, how impactful on the game that he was. But we talk about the egos of these broadcasters, Charlton. And it's not about the game, it's about the broadcaster.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit there and pay homage to the guys who built the foundation of that Hall of Fame. I want to talk about the guy who can perpetuate my career, and that's Terrell Owens. If they can sit up and talk negative about Terrell Owens, Charlton, they'll get more accolades than they will by praising the players that are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Terrell Owens did it his way. He did what he wanted to do. He took his lumps for not attending the ceremony. So he took them. But the players who went to the ceremonies, Charlton, don't turn your back on them, because the NFL will do it also. I remember just a couple of short years ago, Charlton, the late Junior Seau.
Yeah.
They wanted to deny his daughter the chance to speak about her dad. being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So don't put the NFL up on such a high pedestal, because Roger Goodell has been negative also in his action. When he tried to deny Junior Seau's daughter, and the Players Association stood up against him on that, Charlton, to allow her to speak in representation of her dad.
I know it.
And she was a minority.
Yeah.
And you think about that. He tried to deny a minority young lady an opportunity to represent her dad at the Hall of Fame. First time in history that had been done because of the consequences of his death. But he still was being racial in that, Charlton.
Yeah.
Just like the media is being racial towards Terrell Owens and Jalen Ramsey. You have a black defensive back speaking out against white quarterbacks. How appalling can you be? You can't be too smart. You're doing that.
Yeah.
You know. And then you got Terrell Owens. You're looking for Terrell Owens to make a story for you, because as a broadcaster, you don't have enough substance to speak about the guys who are in the Hall of Fame who attended the ceremony.
Yeah, there seems to be more pushback on Terrell Owens for not attending the Hall of Fame ceremony than a man calling a woman a dog. When we say don't take a knee, don't take a knee, that's anti-America. Well, how many men want their daughters to be addressed as a dog by some boy she likes, or by some man that doesn't like her because she doesn't do what he asked her to do, which is shut up? How many men would defend that if some girl comes and said, "Daddy, this guy called me a dog"? In fact, not only did he tweeted it for the whole world to see, which is called cyberbullying. But there's not a lot of pushback. But don't go to the NFL Hall of Fame induction. Oh, my God, it's anathema to the league. I just know that people can do what they want to do. But I'm still, because I have an African-American mother, I'm still troubled by Kellyanne Conway saying, well, if he used the N-word, I couldn't work with him. But he can call a black woman a dog, and that's okay. For all the African-American women out there that have been part of the civil rights movement and opening doors so that white women could become managers and ultimately end up answering to those white girls that never had to be beaten over the head by law enforcement, never were sprayed or their parents were sprayed by a water hose, never had a dog told to sick them and biting them and grabbing them, and then governors and law enforcement and mainstream saying, yeah, get them, get them, get them. They didn't have to deal with that. But a lot of the African-American mothers and grandmothers had to. And now when they go to work, they usually have to answer to a Caucasian woman who didn't have the struggle that they had to get there. You can even look at the movie Hidden Figures to see what I'm talking about, especially the documentary 13. So I asked my white female brethren, the Me Too movement, where's the Me Too when an African-American woman is called a dog? Why are they all so silent? And not because Oprah gave a rousing speech at a ceremony in Hollywood, got a standing ovation. But someone who looks like Oprah being called the dog, and it's like, is the Me Too movement silent all of a sudden, Big C?
Well, Charlton, when I heard the statement from Kellyanne Conway saying I couldn't work for somebody who would call a woman a dog, well, when that tape does come out, Charlton, the backup for that tape, he said that as a candidate, as a private citizen. He didn't say it while I was working for him. The excuses, are starting to put them together right now. Whether you said it last week, whether you said it last year, whether you said it 10 years ago, if you use the N-word, Charlton, in your reference to a member of American society, you used it.
Yeah.
It didn't go away. It's part of the fabric of your makeup. It's what you are. It's just like when that defensive coordinator called me the ghetto N-word on the sideline.
Yeah.
And the black players on his team started to laugh. And I turned to him, I said, what do you MFs think of you?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like they got punched in the stomach because they realized I was correct in what I said. I wasn't saying it to him. He was comfortable using that language in front of them, Charlton, because he had used it against them.
Time and time.
So he had no problem saying it to me. And they thought it was laughable at first until I had to remind them, you look like me.
Yeah.
You don't look like him.
Yeah.
You look like me. So if he can call me this ghetto N-word and I don't work with him or work for him, how comfortable is he saying it about you, whether he's in a meeting with other coaches or just walking around in the facility?
Well,
so, Charlton, but when I hear people from the administration And yesterday, not Kellyanne Conway, but Sarah Huckabee
Sanders, yeah.
said, she said, well, I can't verify that he has or has not used the word.
Yeah.
Now, you think about it. This is the first time that Sarah Huckabee has not stood 100% behind what the president has said or not said.
Yeah.
She said, I can't confirm or deny it. So when she said that statement, Charlton, she knew that he had.
Oh, yeah.
But she didn't want to go on the record saying it either way, because all of her disparaging remarks that she has said in the past have been covered by his lies.
Yeah. And
but if she had came out in the forefront and made a statement one way or the other, he wasn't going to clarify her lie.
Yeah. And I just hope that in the Me Too movement and no violence against women, and I hope that with the NFL still deciding what will they do about the national anthem. How about if every athlete, instead of taking a knee, just look at every woman in a stadium and call her a dog? And we know what the connotation of that is. So I'm disappointed in the owners that have so much anathema against black men and what they say is still painful to us and our children. And how can we just ask our white brethren to fix it? Not to blame anybody. We're asking for your help. Remember, the NAACP was founded in 1909 by Jewish Americans. Black men didn't start that. Jewish men started that. So we're just asking everybody to do what's right to help make society better for women. We in every show know there's no excuse for domestic violence against any woman. If anyone's in trouble, call 911. But violence is not just physical. It's also verbal. It's also internet-based. And when it happened, I feel people coming on TV saying, yeah, but she's not credible. So if it's not credible, call that to your daughter when she comes out of the womb. And just do that ad nauseum. And say, well, what's she upset about? It's just a word. It's more than just a word. And if you won't defend women, then at least Big C Sports will. I'm looking for help too, Big C, because I always think that if someone did that to my mother, there'd be time to fight. Not time to say, well, that's just boys being boys, Mom, don't worry about it. What man would let another man walk up to his mother or his daughter or even his wife and call her that name, print it in the paper the same way he did the Central Park 5, and then the people that work for him say, well, we can't affirm. I mean, they don't even know what to say other than we okay with that word, Big C, being said to an African-American woman. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I would be curious during the broadcast of some of these NFL, whether it's preseason or regular season games, when they panned out on the cheerleaders, and we have these commentators and analysts sitting in the press box. If they made the connotation, they're just a bunch of dogs.
Yep.
How well would that go across in the viewing and broadcast media? How would that be perceived? Would there be a call for the broadcaster's job? Would sponsorship go away, Charlton?
Yeah.
Would he have a job the following next week? Now, we just saw Bruce Bowen made a negative comment back during the season.
Yeah.
About Kawhi Leonard. He made this comment, Charlton, back December, January, when he made that comment. And his contract wasn't renewed just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything negative. He didn't call him an animal. He didn't. But if a broadcaster was to call the cheerleaders, that's a bunch of dogs down on the sideline. How can you stand and look at that? They can't be too intelligent, doing that job.
Yeah. Yep.
What would be the outcry from America at that point?
Well, especially if the man who said it was black. That's what you gotta, if that doesn't hit home at some point in time, then now you see why athletes are taking a knee, especially African-American players. If you could do this in the front of the whole world to see, what happens when you're behind closed doors with that man? And for people to come out and say, well, maybe she's not credible, so we're going to try to defend it. No, that's just wrong, and I hope that people say that is wrong. Big C, the offseason in the NBA free agency, in some ways, it was more interesting than the regular season looked at certain times, with two of the biggest moves in the NBA in the last two seasons. Talking about Durant to Golden State, LeBron James to the Lakers, and then why? I mean, you're talking about men that have gone to different teams and have won or at least played in championships. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at free agent movement around the NBA in the past 5-10 years, what has been the most two impactful moves? And it's just the ones you just spoke about, Charlton. And there's much concerning about basketball as it is life outside of basketball. When you look at Kevin Durant's move to Golden State, one of the top 3 or 4 players in the entire league, Charlton.
Yeah.
His move changed the landscape of basketball. It brought 2 consecutive championships to the Bay Area.
Yep.
But even more so, Charlton, it brought an infusion of partnerships to Silicon Valley.
Isn't that something?
Look at his involvement in Silicon Valley, and I'm talking of Kevin Durant as well as other NBA players.
Yeah.
Silicon Valley has become part of the major future of the United States, Charlton,
Yep.
economically. When you look at what's produced and comes out of that facility, Charlton, it is the hub of American economics. It used to be Wall Street.
Yeah.
But now it's Silicon Valley, Charlton. When we look at innovation and how society has changed, Wall Street operates the same way it did 50 years ago, Charlton.
Yeah.
By white males. Silicon Valley is operated by innovative people
Yeah.
that have an open mind. And when you look at the commercials that these players are involved in now, Charlton, on television,
Yep.
and LeBron James, the next big move to Hollywood, Charlton, not the Lakers, to Hollywood. Yes, basketball's part of it, and that's what everybody sees. But LeBron saw the big picture, just like Kevin Durant did, Charlton. He said, you know what, my basketball life, just like I said earlier on comment about myself and many other senior citizen Americans, Charlton,
Yeah.
we have less time to live than we do to live. LeBron James and Kevin Durant have less time to play basketball than they do to play basketball.
Yeah.
But they understand the economic impact of life outside of the game, Charlton, because they've impacted it on the court. Now they're making corporate impact off the court, Charlton. That they're becoming part of that corporate America. And when you think about the 2 of the largest markets in America, that's Silicon Valley and that's still Hollywood, Charlton.
Yes.
And both of these tremendous black athletes and professional men, Charlton, are putting their thumbprints on each one of those markets, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they will be serious power brokers in the future to reckon with long after their basketball playing days are over.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Big C, because as young men all over the country, there's even doing Big C sports, no one's saying that anything you want to do is easy, but they're setting a footprint or a blueprint, the yellow brick road of how you commend those great
Well, it all
men.
depends on where you've been drinking at, Charlton, if you want to deal with the yellow brick road, okay?
They're doing some cleanup in San Francisco for the yellow brick road too, Big C. It wasn't paved by the states, if you get my drift, but they're hoping that they can open the doors just like Hidden Figures. There are a lot of opportunities that people can be a part of. I just go back to the civil rights movement and the great Dr. Martin Luther King. I don't think Dr. Martin Luther King ever called a woman a dog. And it's just egregious. When I watched that, I remember watching the movie Selma at times and seeing some of the civil rights movements where women, grandmothers and their daughters and their sisters and their aunts, they were out marching to give women equal opportunity and equal pay and the right to vote. And they were African American for the most part, the ones that were beaten up. There were a couple of people in the mainstream that helped them, and that's wonderful. But when the doors were open, the black women were the vanguard, starting with Rosa Parks. When those doors were open, then mainstream Caucasian women were given the main job as managers, not the women who were beaten over the head. John Lewis, and one of them, as a man, he understands what I'm saying. So to listen to what POTUS called an African American woman and watch a clip of Dr. King's speech and see how they're antithetical to each other. One was about bringing our country together, and how Kellyanne Conway and even this Me Too movement is silent. Like a whisper, Big C. It's quiet right now. Why? And it's a shame, because black women have always stood for white American women in this country. And to hear people in the administration saying, well, if he said something like that, I don't know if I can work for him if he said the N-word, but he can call her a dog and we're okay with that, Big C. I just think that's egregious. But as you know, a lot of people won't talk about that. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, with his shock therapy that he goes through all the time, you also got to understand what he does and the timing of what he does. It's all calculated, Charlton, when he makes certain statements. You look at what was occurring this week, Charlton, and his former campaign director, Paul Manafort, trial was going to the jury. So he was trying to deflect from that just in case it has to come up that he might have to try to pardon this guy, Charlton. and obstruct justice in another way because he still has another trial going along once this one is over. So, every time that he does something that we think is more shocking than the next time, Charlton, look at what he's trying to deflect from. He's constantly been trying to deflect from this meeting with Putin, Charlton.
Yeah.
He also come out today and revoked the security clearance, Charlton, of some lifetime, criminal justice people.
Yeah.
And why? You had to do something against the government. But he revoked their security clearance, Charlton, because 90% of the people that were on his list were Democrats. He threw in a couple of Republicans just to say, well, I'm going after everybody, but 90% of the people on his list were Democrats.
Yeah.
So, when you sit there and you look at all of what he does, the Omarosa thing deflected from him firing these lifetime politics, these security people,
yeah,
revoking their security clearance so that they no longer have access to, security information.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't read it either, Charlton, but he would rather have his daughter and his son-in-law with the security clearance versus people who understand world politics.
Well, I'll say to every woman out there, especially young girls, you're not dogs. And when some man calls you that, just, report it to authority. Not that it matters, it seems, but do that anyway because you're not dogs. And you got to keep your self-esteem because a lot of people go silent when they could speak up. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking forward to these games that's going to start for the next weekend of preseason. Everybody's going to be in the running of who's going to get the most playing time at quarterback. And should a team put one of these first-round draft picks out there to stunt his career? And I think it would be a bad move with the way that the game has changed in the NFL over the past couple of years, Charlton. I don't think that any of these young quarterbacks are ready. I like the Cleveland Browns' chances if they stay with Tyrod Taylor, Charlton. You're a team that's on the upswing. You brought in a lot of solid veteran players, just like Bill Belichick has done in the past.
Yeah.
When you think about what Bill Belichick has done, he has built his team through free agency year after year and trade. The Cleveland Browns did the same thing this past offseason. Don't worry about the young quarterback. You have enough players in place to win a half-dozen games, Charlton, if not be a serious contender for a playoff spot.
I agree very much so, Big C. So as we always tell you, all around the world, defend women. They're not dogs. Your daughter that was just born, whether it's now or 20 years ago, she's not a dog. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any woman or man going through that garbage, please call 911 because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.